Hi, everybody, and welcome to our webinar today. We are very lucky indeed to be joined by the one and only Nadia Younan. You would be hard pushed to not have heard of Nadia if you work within the workforce management environment or contact centers more broadly for that. So we're super excited, always love having a chat. And obviously there's going to be loads for you guys to take away. Our session today is preparing for the future with workforce management, and we're going to hear a whole lot around some of the developments, the shifts that we're seeing in the landscape. Equally, hear a little bit from Nadia around what she sees as that future of WFM, and what she's seeing as she's out in countries all over the place, providing support to all sorts of customers. So can't wait for that. In the spirit of reconciliation, Auscontact acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. The usual story, today's webinar will run for approximately 60 minutes, and during that time we hope to see you interacting, and we hope that the insights and the different thought leadership that you're provided with really helps you think about what's in your control and what can you do differently within your own environment. And of course, to round off the session, we'll have Q&A. I'm Fran Southwood, CEO of Auscontact and your moderator today. Just some very general housekeeping with you. As I said, we really want to see you interact. It is absolutely the way to maximise the benefit that you get. There's no need to take too many notes. We will provide you with a recording of the webinar and any of the slides that Nadia takes us through. We'll send through some of those. In addition, NICE will also be giving away a $200 e-gift card for the best question of the day asked, and this will be judged by Nadia. To be eligible, you have to stay through to the end, and then Nadia will choose the winner post the webinar, and we'll let you know. Use the Q&A button on the control panel. You can ask questions or make comments where it makes sense. If they're relevant to what's being talked about, I'll actually jump in and ask them of Nadia there and then so we can keep on track. If they're things that are more generic or general, or things that we'll be covering later in the deck, I'll keep those to the end, and we'll make sure we cover them. But again, I always say it, if you're anything like me, I'll think of a great question, and if I don't write it down, I will lose that great question. So make sure you keep a track of it by sticking it on the Q&A or in the chat feature, and we'll make sure we get that included. If you have any tech issues or experience any sort of technical challenges, note that on the control panel you can click raise hand, and one of the team will jump in and try and help you. Alternatively, you would have had some dial-in numbers with your registration, so you can jump in that way. I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to introduce Nadia and hand over to her. So Nadia Younan is the APAC WFO Solutions Manager. Nice. And Nadia, I'm going to hand over to you to kick it off.
Hey, thank you, Fran. And thank you so much to everybody for joining today. Let me just get screen sharing happening and we will kick off. Screen number 2. Everybody can see the title slide?
Yep.
Yep. All right, great. So thank you so much for your time. I've got a really big, broad array of agenda items today. And some of it is WFM related, of course, that's what we're all here about, but also about how other areas of the contact center, particularly around AI and automation, impact us and ways that we can better serve to execute on some of those strategies. So we're going to be talking about some contact center trends. We'll look at different AI automation and optimization levers that exist in the contact center, how we can help support the acceleration of and usage of some of those levers, how to boost employee performance. So I am a big employee advocate, and we're going to take a bit of a sidestep into performance management and see how that can also help serve us in the WFM realm and how that needs to be relevant to the work and the nature of today's work. Looking back at the core WFM, it is a pretty complex landscape out there with lots of channels and work types that didn't exist before. So how can we overcome some of those barriers? And employee engagement and automation is where we will conclude on. So with that, let's get going. As Fran mentions, if you have a great question that's contextual, pop it in the chat. I'm happy to address it as we go. Anything that we can't, we'll respond to in writing. So these statistics are from a survey that NICE conducted with Simple Media Group very, very recently. It's about to be published next month, so it's probably more North American focused, and I can get the details on that for anybody who wants it. But having said that, the numbers that we see here are pretty on par with what I would expect through Asia Pacific and Australia, New Zealand. So first of all, touching on the hybrid working model. 64% of organizations have that today, according to the survey. This is an interesting topic, and when we're going to come back to, you will see, particularly in the Australian media, our opposition leader recently saying, if he becomes the Prime Minister, that he's going to, encourage public servants to go back to work. We're seeing, there's been a lot of banks. I think there was I won't name names. There was another one recently that was in the media who's pushing people back to the office. So we'll take a look at that and how that lands with the employee. This one is mega. This is a mega trend. I know the number is medium range. I think aspirationally that number would be higher. Organizations are really looking to push the boundaries of work in terms of who does that work. And right across the contact center and beyond. Okay, they want to be able to understand pockets of over and underutilization and do something with that to boost productivity at a lower cost. This one is a no-brainer. We know this. It is big from year on year. Digital channels is where it's at. We know that. And this way of working, where employees are switching between different channels and are truly blended, is no longer some sort of exotic way of working. It's the norm. Okay, the majority of employees out there are handling multiple channels and doing so concurrently. Okay. Now, employee engagement. Now, this is a really depressing slide to start you off with. Bear with me. We're going to look at ways to make this better. Okay, so this is from Gallup. And again, if anybody wants surveys, we can sync you up and with where these statistics came from.
And Nadia, what we might do is include the links to those. I just know we've got a couple of people already putting in there, love the details on surveys. So any that are finalised, what we'll do is include them in the info that we send out post the session.
Yeah, and I will share. Some of them are weird, like you need subscriptions and stuff, but I will pull out what I can and also share that across. But this is sad, right? So 85% of people are not engaged. 81% of people would leave if something better came along. And then on the flip side, we have 29% of people who are happy with their development. Okay. And nearly or over a third of people who want more recognition. So if you've ever been a contact center worker, so a lot of us are in operations and we're supporting that workforce, but if you've ever been that person, it's not difficult to understand that they might respond in this way. Okay, so when a contact center is operating in a place where the employee feels like they're just a number, that you have 5,000 or 400 or 200 people doing the same thing as them, it starts to feel like I could just ring up sick and no one's going to notice. Or I could just be late and no one really cares because I'm not an individual in that organization. And so we're going to look at ways that both WFM and PM and our whole strategies can help boost this and make these a bit nicer, because it has impacts to us. And you'll see through this presentation, I'm going to be creating like this big knot of how everything is interconnected, because in reality, it is. So this is the state that we're in, and we don't kind of want to be in. We want to look at improving some of those numbers. So some of the levers that we have, of course, is this big one, and I've called it, bots. I'm talking about self-service and containment. What this really is about things like conversational AI. Okay. And we're going to take a bit of a deeper dive and look at how that can support our workforce management strategies, how that can help boost employee engagement and retention, as well as increased containment into that interaction, into that channel, and increased first contact resolution. Okay. The labor costs, this is what we're sort of bread and butter stuff for us, is looking at ways that we can use that workforce to get through interactions in a quality way faster. Okay, so looking at ways to reduce transfers, hold times, repeat interactions, and driving a better and more balanced staffing, okay, is often within our remit. So folks are looking to use AI and automation to reduce training and onboarding times. So again, putting our WFM hats on. Okay, great. You've just been given a cohort of new employees, but it takes 3 months for them to become proficient. And I'm saying 3 months because some of my customers, it really does take, 12 weeks, 16 weeks. So what are some ways that, we can be smart around technology and adoption to make those folks, more proficient and contributing more sooner? That might be something you're looking at. Reducing employee churn. We're going to look at how workforce management can serve to reduce employee churn. This is a great place where we can provide benefit to the organization, doing things like flexible scheduling, self-scheduling, working from home, even though there's a bit of a disconnect or differing opinions between the operations and what employees want. That could be something that will serve there. And to segue into reducing real estate costs, that could be something that's on the forefront of mind. It can, I guess, kind of go both ways, where folks who have invested in offices want to get the utilization from the investment, people who have an opportunity to maybe get rid of that investment and keep people from home. It could serve in that way as well. But this is kind of where we can help organizations pull these levers to drive, better outcomes. And so let's take a bit more of a look at some of this. So I'm going to speak a little bit about AI up front, and then we'll get into WFM. So real-time agent assist, things like co-pilots, these are the sorts of technologies that folks are just enamored with at the moment. I could be here selling you a washing machine or a fridge, and someone's going to be asking me, where is the AI? And that's all well and good, and that's cool, and I get it. It does provide great outcomes, and it does serve us in lots of fantastic ways, as you can see on the slide. But where's workforce management in this conversation? So I can't tell you how many times I have seen organizations just get enamored with technology. Here's a thing that's going to make something faster. Let's go and put it in a cloud, and it passes all of cloud security, and that's great, and switch it on and just go. Okay, hey, what about the people who are doing the work or who were doing the work before? Has there been any consultation with them about if we did get a 24% reduction in AHT by having an AI bot up front or having a co-pilot on the call or whatever you want to call it, has anybody modeled that and done something with that? Did you speak to workforce management about that? Do you have a scenario or a plan about what we're going to do with that 24% save that we've got? And often, a lot of the times, is no. Basically, what I see happening is that we just get told about it afterwards and the thing gets turned on. So, it is great in that regard, but we want ways to bring us into the conversation and make sure you're delivering a service, which is, what workforce management is meant to be about. Same for things like this conversational AI. So having a chatbot up front that says, hi, Fran, I know all about you. How can I help you today? And solves that interaction. If it's able to do that in a great manner, and these are some numbers from our products, right? I'm not here to sell you products today, but these are some of the results our customers have seen. If you put, and I know you all have WFM hats on, but if you thought about this, that 63% of interactions in that AI, conversational AI bot was solved, what happens to everything else that we do in WFM and to our plans? So really, these technologies can produce great outcomes, but we must be part of that conversation, both strategically and then monitoring it from an operational perspective, because it has a big impact on our workforce. Even when this goes wrong, like having, I won't swear on the call, my language, even having a very average bot, let's say it is garbage, yeah? let's say I'm a customer and I'm interacting with your garbage bot that can't solve my problem. It's causing frustration. So it's not producing this containment, right? Who has to deal with the outcome of that bot is the contact center agent. So when this technology upfront is failing, they're the ones who get the angry customer or the annoyed customer or the customer who says, I already told this 16 times to the bot. Why isn't that information flowing through? So both from the employee experience perspective as well as the workforce utilization perspective, this technology has a real impact on our day-to-day. When those employees are getting those angry customers or the angry interactions from the bot that's no good, now their day is not so great. I don't really want to be here. I'm getting frustrated. I'm getting annoyed. I might say I'm sick and go home early. To see where I'm going with all of this, it really has an impact right across the board. It can deliver great outcomes. It can deliver poor outcomes. We need to be across those potentials, and we need to have different scenarios modeled for us. One of the biggest challenges I still see in this landscape, and if you're thinking about doing that conversational AI, I'm not going to spend too much on this, we'll move off, is just access to data. And access to data is a real barrier, even just in WFM as a standalone, and then as an organizational problem as well. It is really challenging. So a huge part of my job is spent on connecting this system to that system, and can these two talk to each other and things like that. When these silos exist, it makes these sorts of strategies and approaches really, really difficult because you don't know what you have. It could be time consuming, lengthy. So really folks are looking at omni-channel contact centers. They want to reduce the number. Like in some organizations, this would literally be, you could put a different brand name on every single one of these products. And somehow these 4 folks in the middle are tasked with stitching it all together. It's very, very challenging and very limiting. But that is a key one that I see. This one here, again, same sort of messaging that I have here. These can produce really great outcomes, but we need to hustle and get in front of the people who are making these technology decisions. We need to be part of that conversation to understand what this is going to do to our workforce. Okay, so again, it's kind of easier said than done. We're going to look at it in a little more detail, but we really need WFM to be forefront of people's minds when they're embarking on opening up new ways that customers can communicate with us. I think it kind of gets lost because people think, oh, but it's not the people who are dealing with it. It's going to be the bot. It's going to be the technology. It's going to be the messaging platform or the chat system or something that's going to, maybe not chat, but that's going to handle the interaction. And so we don't need to consider workforce, but really you do, because this has a flow-on effect to us. So I've put in some bit of a sidebar around performance management and putting that into today's conversation. Again, you can see some pretty serious numbers there at the bottom from Aberdeen. This one came from. Looking at the cost of attrition. We know that attrition can be costly in various ways, not just from the transactional stuff like the cost to hire somebody else, the cost to get a recruitment initiative, but the loss of skills that goes with that person can be a real drain on the organization. So from a performance management perspective, and we've got some great technology here, but this is something that I have a real passion project for. I think it's such a low-hanging fruit. If you think back to my earlier statement that a contact center agent can often feel very lost in the crowd. I'm just a number here. These sorts of initiatives can have a really engaging effect on the employee. I know you. I know who you are. I know what motivates you. I want to include you in the team, whether you're working from home or working from anywhere else. And again, I'm a workforce management person. Why do I necessarily care about this? Because this is my workforce. the better that these folks perform, the better outcomes I'm going to get operationally. I might get less absenteeism, better adherence. I might get better retention of the employee. They may handle their contacts faster because they are engaged, they are knowledgeable, and all of those things. And again, I have lived this life, and I just think when folks are sort of included in this way, it really gives them a sense of purpose and a sense of belonging. So stuff like this, and I'm here to, again, not here to sell today. This could be a piece of paper tucked up on a wall. It doesn't necessarily need to be the latest and greatest, but a way to identify and recognize the employee really does reap benefits to us in the workforce management space. I would encourage you to get really friendly with the performance management team. Understand what KPIs they are using, how they measure them, what WFM ones are particularly involved in that scorecard, and really have a sense of how is performance going? Is it trending up? Is it trending down? And that may give you some upstream insight into those forecasts and plans. It may serve as another indicator into, could be even attrition, it could be even AHT and things like that. So have a chat with them if you don't already, and understand what's on their mind, where it's going, and things like that. Okay. Coaching, all these sorts of things are really important, making sure that we can keep people on track at the time that they need to be kept on track, in real time, targeted, all of those great things. Gamification. Okay, so gamification is interesting. This is another trend that things, I guess, come and go. And I see a lot of tenders, and we call them RFPs, like where a customer is going to buy a WFM. So they'll send me like 300 questions about WFM and what it does. And gamification was one that came up a lot for a period of time, and then I don't really see it anymore. Now, this slide is talking about gamification in terms of those leaderboards. I was learning a language on Duolingo, that app, and they did it so well. Like, you're number 10, and if you just do a little bit more, you can get higher, and there's notifications, and there's badges, and there's all this sort of stuff. And so you get really engaged in playing that game because you want to achieve certain outcomes. And I think humanly, we all get that, right? From a WFM perspective, though, from a scheduling perspective and using gamification in that way, as I said, it came up a lot, and then kind of I didn't see it so much anymore. At NICE, we are doing some really cool self-scheduling and things like that, where employees could be, rewarded for great performance with a schedule that they want, and that they're going to get, whereas someone who's a mid-tier performer perhaps only gets 50% of their preferences and things like that. So we are looking at bringing gamification into WFM. But even from a performance management perspective, I really encourage some sort of reward and recognition, because it does have effects to us in WFM, as well as just making the workplace a more fun place to be. So from the performance management side, we can see some really fantastic outcomes in here. Reducing employee attrition, so improving employee engagement, employee satisfaction, and even things like this, like handle times reducing by 70%. So this is why I say you want to talk to these people. So again, coming back to WFM, let's say you knew that in the future, your performance management team is going to be creating some fantastic thing, and these people, could win a PlayStation 5 if they do X, Y, and Z, right? This may be something that you're going, okay, well, handle times could reduce by 70. What if I had a mid-range and just said they reduced by 35? What is that going to do to my plan? What is that operational strategy going to do to my workforce management plan? And this is why it's anything relating to those people. Yeah, we should have a conversation and get to know what those strategies are and how those people could be affected. Guess what? We're the one who's managing them. Yeah. So these are really great conversations to be part of, and start to get your little antennas twitching. I should know about this. I should be involved in this. I want to talk about this because I want to factor that into my plan. Okay. Now this slide is from 2023, so I'm going to skip over to an Asia Pacific slide more and look at what's going on a bit down home rather than in the North America. So attrition seems to be kind of stabilizing around that 20% mark. We had a really, really high spike after COVID, where everybody was getting crazy money for a while and was running around like mad. And then it seems to have settled down somewhat around that 20-ish, 25, maybe 30% mark. That kind of feels normal to me. Now, this slide just absolutely blows my mind, right? So that number is coming from one of the American surveys. So let's say we replace that with 30 or something. Cool. 89% of those people said the impact of access to flexible schedules was a decision-making, like a factor in their decision to leave. And then look at what the aspects of flexible scheduling are. This is like stuff that you could have been, I say you, I don't mean, I'm talking about everyone, could have been doing in like 1998. There's nothing new on here. Flexible breaks and lunches, split shifts. I want to swap really? I want to trade shifts. I want access to my schedule. So when I saw this, once I like picked myself back up from the chair, I'm like, what is it about this stuff that people can't execute on? Because this is basic stuff that has been around for a long, long time. If I saw this slide and it said like, 30% of people are upset because there's no WFM Copilot that they can just go, hey, chat GP, like, you know what I mean? Like something really new that, nobody can even do. But this is like bread and butter stuff. So I was asked on a recent like presentation, like, well, then what is it? Like, why are 80% of people almost not even getting basic flexibility in their breaks and lunches? Or a bunch of people say, I'm not able to swap my shifts, right? I've got a few answers. So I was in a presentation recently and I was on stage with somebody who leads a very big practice and they've got about 40,000 seats. So this is a serious workforce management team. And on the stage, like I was doing like a fireside chat, she's like, well, we're the police of the organization and WFM are here to police. And I'm just like internally going, oh no, please, please, please don't call yourself that and don't think that. I don't want you to think that. And again, this is just my 2 cents, right? But that was the mentality. We are the cops. We are here to do everything and touch everything, and everything is in our control. I will not let any of this go. So if we sit with that for a second, that speaks to me about some sort of inherent fear or confidence or not really understanding what else they could be doing. I don't want to do any of this stuff. As a workforce planner, I don't want to be involved in any of this stuff. I want to provide it to my employees, but I don't need to be involved because there's technology for that and it has been for a long time that's pretty robust. I want to go and have a conversation with the digital transformation team about what my strategy should be and what their strategy is and all that great stuff. This is transactional stuff that's important but doesn't need you to be involved. So the first thing is like, who are we as WFM people? Am I the police? Is that what I think of myself? Because I think that, again, this is just my opinion, bit of an image problem. Number one. Number two is maybe you don't have the technology yet still to do all this stuff. If you go and look at me on LinkedIn, and I encourage you to LinkedIn with me if you're not, you'll see I've worked for pretty much every WFM company at some point in time, right? They can all pretty much do this. But I still joke that my biggest competitor is Excel sheets. So for people who don't really get, I think, the value of investing in WFM, they stay with notepads. I spoke to a customer once, and I'm not even making this up. Their real-time monitoring was somebody sitting on a WhatsApp, and every time something went away, they would WhatsApp the WhatsApp group and say, and that was their real-time monitoring. Yeah. So some people are still like that with the technology, but it's because they don't understand what else we could be doing. And if you have that kind of image problem, if people just think this is what you do, you swap Bob and Judy's shifts and you move their breaks around, they don't feel like you are an important person to come to when we're talking about co-pilots and agent assists and digital strategy, because all they think we do is move breaks and swap shifts around. They think we're schedulers, and that scheduling is important, but there's also other stuff we could do. So this blows my mind. You could probably tell that it's got me riled up a little bit. I can't believe that we can't offer this. So have a think about whether you're offering stuff like this. If you're not, is it technology? Do people not know or are not comfortable in their job to let some of this stuff go? They don't know what else they would be doing. The only other thing I will comment on this slide is it can sometimes be the forecast. So it is difficult to promote really cool self-service strategies. And yeah, you're a high performer and you're going to get all these shifts and all this stuff if your forecast is consistently inaccurate, because that's the bedrock of everything we do. Remember back to that slide I had up that said people can't access data. It's in all different bits. So if you can't create a forecast that supports all those digital channels and every other bit of data that needs to be in the WFM, it makes this sort of strategy and moving away from a human being being involved to automating it really, really difficult, because you're going to get it wrong because the forecast was wrong in the first place.
And
This
Nadia,
is,
sometimes
yeah,
that's resulting in this misplaced trust or lack of trust, right? So if you think
yes,
about all of these things here, and I'm like you, I'm mind blown when I still talk to
crazy.
and
Yeah,
have Excel spreadsheets, and I'm not talking small, I'm talking big organizations. And again, they've got a person, you know, they're like, oh, you know, we've just said no to any more shift swaps because, you know, that takes a team leader or whatever. That's all they
yeah,
do. And I'm like, why? Why? Why
yeah,
are they doing that? But again, there's got to be this trust within the bigger system. And if any one of those components aren't up and doing what they're meant to do, so you talk about forecast. If your forecast is wrong and you've then got someone saying, hey, let's try this with our shifts, actually, they don't blame the forecast. They jump straight into what changed. Well, suddenly we let people do this, but actually it's kind of
yeah,
exploded within the system. So there's got to be this trust. Like, you know, people in WFM, we need to let things go to actually let the system actually showcase what it can do. Because again, I think there's this little bit of fear and a little bit of, you know, that's my comfy chair because I know how to do that. And
yeah,
I know all the intricacies of how my business operates. And if we just let this be automated, well, you know, there's no way that's going to work. So there's got to be a bit of trust there. So maybe, you know, there's
absolutely.
some opportunities to test in smaller, you know, queues, et cetera, et cetera. But again, it comes back to what is the bigger system doing and how are we optimizing each component of it to allow us to trust the system.
Absolutely. Look, and I couldn't agree more. And as I mentioned, I'm going to be creating a big knot of things that are all connected, and that is a really great part of it. And I think the brand awareness. You should think about the brand awareness of WFM. Have a little survey internally and ask people what they think you do. And inevitably, most folks think we just do schedules for some reason. We're changing. We're schedulers. And again, like that's important, but they're missing the strategic value that we can add. And so that could be part of building that trust is letting people know what you actually are capable of beyond this sort of
For
stuff.
sure.
But super low hanging fruit. So take a
Mm.
think about some of these things. If you're not doing them today, go away from the call and think about why and what it might take for you to close. It should be a very easy gap to close. Should be. Okay. Just going very quickly on this one, conscious of time. And I also realized in my other presentation that the numbers don't seem to line up with the colors. So this one says 20, I don't know if it's back to front, I'm not sure. But what are other organizations offering? You'll see this one, better or premium pay. I don't personally necessarily buy that. I think salaries are kind of at a place where that's a lever that in a lot of organizations is exhausted. We can't just keep paying people more. And I guess that's out of our control on this call. So I'm more focused on the things that we can, which could be this working remotely or hybrid. Non-financial benefits, you can play a part here too. I was looking at a job ad, and I think I mentioned this on a previous call, where it said things like, "We will honor your religious holidays, whatever denomination you are. Come work for us, and you're going to get, Holi or Diwali or whatever on as leave." And I thought, how cool is that? They probably still get the same 20 days of leave that they already got. But the way that the ad is being worded makes it sound like it's something special. Probably cost them nothing. It just looks cool. And so that sort of stuff. And we can play a part in that non-financial benefits with the schedules, which really has an impact on people's day-to-day. I mentioned, get your preferred shifts. We're going to be doing a lot more about that, where better performers are going to be guaranteed those shifts. People can build their own schedules, stuff like that. And flexible scheduling, we're going to come back to as well. So these things are all interconnected, and that's what I'm sort of painting on this picture here. This is what people want. They want to be able to, have the on the go. They want automation, okay, and real time. So let's step into that in a little bit more. So I've just, again, this is not a product demonstration of NICE, but I've just popped in a few bits that we have about what we're doing, and just to give you some, I guess, thoughts about what you might want from a WFM and things like that. So again, about artificial intelligence and how we use artificial intelligence at NICE when it comes to WFM. So I do get asked this a lot, like, does the WFM, talk to large language models and do all this stuff? Not yet. Maybe one day it will. For us at the moment, we use artificial intelligence in WFM to go and assess up to 46. It says multiple. That number is 46 different forecast models for each work stream that you're forecasting for. It will self-select which one will yield you the most accurate forecast. Okay, and it doesn't matter which channel you're forecasting for. So we spoke about upstream, that we got a 40% rise in digital. We need a WFM that's going to produce the most accurate forecast in the less time possible, with the least amount of human intervention. So that's how we're using artificial intelligence when it comes to AI, when it comes to our WFM, sorry. This is the other hurdle or barrier that a lot of folks, even on this call, will be stuck with and just can't get their technology, both from the ACD and from the WFM, to play ball with. So if you cast your mind back in history, when WFMs were invented, everything was about the phone call. And you would have a phone call sent from the ACD. And back in the olden days, it was always Avaya or Cisco, pretty much. And the call would come in and the call would conclude. And at the conclusion of that interval, we would send the handle time from the call. Okay, then the next call would come in, and so on and so forth. This is the world that we're seeing today. So this is not a trend or anything. This is just life now. So the employee opens a ticket and starts a chat. The customer does, I beg your pardon, with the employee. That consumes 2 minutes of the employee's time. They're reading it and understanding what to do. The employee gets back to the customer. There's another 5 minutes of handle time from the employee, and then so on. And then there's another 3 minutes in reverse. Okay. In today's world, with today's ACDs, the Amazon Connects, the Genesis, Salesforce, LivePerson, whatever. Okay. What they do is they send us 70 minutes of handle time when this is resolved. We get all of this here to here in one big chunk, because that's how phone calls used to work. Okay, but it's not. It was 2 minutes here and 5 minutes there and 3 minutes there. So the traditional WFM is forced to count this as a 70-minute AHT when it's not. So this slide is quite busy and I'm going to go through quickly. And as mentioned, we can share it across. But this is what we're left with in WFM. So on the left-hand side, we see stuff like this, where there's one message came through and then we have no handle time about it, no handle time about it, all the handle time about it. And then we get this nonsense that you need 2 people to handle one asynchronous interaction, which is garbage, right? It makes no sense. Now, that was we could maybe live with that like 10 years ago, when there was barely any digital or no digital asynchronous work. You saw, I think, my first slide, which said there was a 44% year-on-year increase in digital. This is not okay anymore. We can't live like this. So again, just quickly, what NICE is doing about it. We own the contact center. It's called CX1. We own a WFM, actually 2 of them, and ours do true to interval forecasting. So when a message is worked or received at 9 o'clock and handled, we have extra data columns. We can see the handle time during the 9 a.m. interval was 5 seconds, and I need a portion of an FTE here, a full FTE there, and a part of an FTE there to handle the asynchronous work. Okay, so again, this is not a nice product demo today, and I'm only putting this up just to show this is the kind of technology that needs to be not some sort of nice to have or cool to have. You need to be able to do this, right? So again, back to the linkage point, now we're at the forecast level. We've spoken about employee engagement and performance management. We've spoken about cool strategies to deliver flexible schedules. If this is wrong, all of that goes out the window. We now have people where we don't know whether we need them or not. We have maybe employees who are overutilized. They're getting sick of being bombarded with messages. Messages, by the way, that say, hey, I've been sitting here waiting for a response forever because we didn't know we needed so many. You see where I'm going with this? So this is the kind of thing that needs to be on your mind when you're going out and looking at WFM and thinking about what should a WFM be capable of today. And we get all this stuff. If I told you that you had a WFM to do this, you'd be able to tell me these are all the cool things I expect from doing it, right? I expect to be accurate, okay? Efficiency, consistency, and again, my passion project is improved employee experience. Are we going to need them for overtime? Are they going to be maintaining a great level of occupancy that keeps people happy? I will be able to foresee that if my forecast is right. And if I'm expecting a digital explosion or the explosion is here, I can't have technology that pretends everything is a call. It doesn't serve me anymore. And it doesn't serve these strategies and all the other outlying AI and performance management stuff. Now, this is one of the biggest trends I see, and you're all out there driving me crazy about this and making my life extremely complicated because of this particular trend. Yeah. So pretty much every RFP again or tender I get, and tenders are a really great way to take a temperature check of what's on your mind. As I said, you will send me 300, literally can be 200, 300 questions. Can the WFM do this? Can it do that? And pages of these questions I have to answer. And this one in particular is just coming up every time. So hi, Nadia. We're going to tender for contact center WFM. And could you do our bank branches? And could you do our retail stores? And could you do our face-to-face service kiosks, right? So folks are looking to do more with less. Organizations at the parent level want to be able to look across the whole enterprise and look for pockets of over or understaffing and areas of opportunity to improve utilization. By 2027, 30% of organizations will consolidate multiple positions into one role. So that's where we're headed. How does WFM serve this process? How can it serve? Again, backtracking. We need an accurate forecast. We need to be spending times on the things that drive strategic objectives, not spending time trading shifts and moving breaks and stuff like that. This is some of the trends I look at and go, I don't really see that. This one like hits me in the, this is where we're all going, is really bringing that universal employee who could possibly do anything, particularly as those AI bots get better. That's what we're going to be left with, and we need to be ready for that. Okay, hybrid is the new norm. Now, again, I mentioned, it was in the press the other day about Peter Dutton doesn't want people working from home, and there's lots of noise about this in the media landscapes and in different press. I'm personally, I'm a hybrid person. I think working from home offers some really great benefits. I think we have the technology. We are proficient enough in the practices that people working from home shouldn't feel disenfranchised. I'm in favor of it. I do get that going in person does provide that collaboration and things like that. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's going to stay as a trend or continue to come down. let's keep an eye on that one. If you are having people who are working from home, though, and this is still a big part of your go-to-market strategy, and then again, I just, my own 2 cents, I'm in favor of it. Definitely ensure that they get the same love and attention and coaching and all that great stuff that your in-office employees get. Sure, there's going to be some nuances of difference, but they shouldn't be feeling disenfranchised. They should be hearing from you. They should be engaged and all those good things, just like our people who are in the office are, whether they were forced to be there or not. I saw this, I like watching the news about workplaces and what's going on. And I literally saw this on March 16, and our Prime Minister has put this one. This is the right to disconnect law. If you're not being paid 24 hours a day, you shouldn't be on call 24 hours a day. I cut off the comments. There was about 2,500 smarty-ass Australian comments underneath Albo's post. But he's not wrong, right? There are boundaries. There are right to disconnect laws. So I have, and I speak nice, we have great technology that can pop and notify and engage and all that stuff. But we really need to be respectful of the employee experience and make sure we are not spamming them. They are now covered under this law. So we need to respect those boundaries when we are looking to, have people who are working from home. Cross-skilling the front and back office. This is, one of the first forays that people tend to go in. The bank branch one is interesting. I've only ever spoken really to one bank, I think, who actually was having the branches do voice calls. A lot of the banks are doing things where they may be doing like some back office-y style work in between emails, cases, things like that. This is just about breaking down those silos, making sure that we can produce parity between the front and the back. Skills are transferable. We've got actions to the data that we need, and that they are being performance managed in a way that is consistent across the organization. Again, back onto that trend, it's really difficult to, so let's say you have a CEO or COO or somebody comes down the line to you and says, I want you to show me a model that has my back office and front office blended together. And I only want it for these particular work types or something like that. Back to the forecast. So if you don't have that visibility into that part of the organization, that could be a barrier that you're going to have to overcome. Particularly things like, good example, I'm working on a retail WFM where they have a contact center and want to do the WFM in a retail environment. If any of you have really spent time with like a time and attendance system or a retail WFM, is a very, very different beast with very, very different metrics, looking at different data points. They may not have the same data points that you're used to. So we really need to find a way to be able to get the right insights that's going to help serve that environment and serve that strategy and answer that question, how many people would we need? So that's an interesting journey a lot of organizations will have to go on, is what data actually comes out of those places and how can we use that to serve this universal employee strategy. Otherwise, we're going to be at a bit of a loss, and I better move on. Just some of the things quickly that we're working on at NICE. We're going to be bringing out, I think next year, looking at cognitive load on the employee. Just because you can create a model that has people cross-skilled on 50 different skills and a bunch of different channels, what is the right mix of the employee that will, alleviate, high stress or boredom, which comes with low stress, for example. And just in conclusion, employee engagement and change management is another place where we can really future-proof our WFM. Take our hands off, do a little bit more with automation and free ourselves up for doing more strategic things like those AI strategies and things like that. So this is what, we saw that on that slide. I want 24/7 schedule access. I want to control how I can be reached. The Prime Minister is literally saying you can't contact people 24/7. I want to be, real-time alerts. If I'm working from home, I expect to have the same level of coaching and performance, doesn't matter where I am. And I don't really want to talk to you, WFM team, as much as I love you. I want to be able to self-serve like the way you provide your customers self-service, right? Just very quickly on what solution that NICE has to solve for this. So we have an automation layer that will analyze the net staffing, understand if you're over or understaffed. It automatically engages with the employees. It knows who they are, what skills they can take, their preferences, etc. And do you want to pick up an extra shift? Would you like to swap with yourself because I'm not busy and make the time up on another day? Or would you like to, take time off or pick up an extra shift? All of that can be automated. So this process here, you have this today, right? That'll be a person creating a forecast, matching it up to actual and watching and seeing if some sort of course correction needs to take place. What we're saying here, and again, not the hard sell today, I'm just showing you that technology exists that could all be automated, okay, and completely outsourced, if you will, to a platform such as this. Again, I'm not a proponent of, Angie could reduce your WFM team by half. It's more about saying they could do other things. The employees themselves can be, getting that 24/7 access via mobile device, web portal, email. And we can also do things like real-time alerting. So if you're sitting at home, yes, we want you to change your task, move to another work type, your schedule has been modified, all that stuff. And just in conclusion, before we go to some Q&A, this slide here either makes you feel ill in your stomach or you think it's fantastic, depending on your philosophy, right? It makes me feel a bit ill. What we're saying here is we have the technology, for example, to even automate the process of somebody being stuck on a call and automatically shifting their breaks. That could be automated too. I say that can make some people feel queasy because for me, adherence should be a measure of how well you followed my schedule, not you retrospectively changing the schedule to what you did. And people take different approaches there. But these are just, in summary, some different levers that you can pull, some different ways that you can future-proof your contact center technology and practice. And so in summary, my advice would be, first of all, is get to know other areas of the business really well. Who's making technology decisions? What are those decisions and how can they impact you? And how can you serve them to understand the impacts of what you're doing? Get to know other people like the performance management team. What is their strategy and how some of those strategies might impact the workforce themselves. I think really open up the workforce management practice, show people what you can do, the value that you add, and that may help you to get invited to more of these strategic discussions that are going to have an impact on the future of your workforce. With that, I'm at the conclusion of the slide part of the presentation. Fran, is there any questions that we can answer live?
There's a few questions there, and I think we'll get through what we can. I guess the kind of at the beginning, we saw a comment from Luke, and it was around the fact that you can't go fully automated overnight. So everything you've talked about, they're all kind of things that you'd need to almost stage gate within your organization. So what steps would you suggest going through to implement AI or automation? For example, Luke calls out some of the things like agent assist, etc., to surface things. And, once that works, what about using a bot over the top? Or once that, what's the sort of approach you see work well as far as actually coming up with where you start and how do you come up with those sensible tranches?
Yeah, really great question. I have a real world experience where I was in a contact center once, Luke, where they just opened up a chat channel this was back when chat was kind of new, without talking to any of us in workforce management. And the thinking was, I guess somebody's thinking was, because they didn't talk to us, that if we open up this chat channel, that's going to mean a reduction in voice and, everyone shall just go about their business and we shall need the same amount of people. Actually, what it did was it introduced a whole new cohort of customers who couldn't be bothered voice calling, but they might just chat and see what happens, right? And this greater service on the chat channel was so dire that they had to switch it off, right? It actually increased demand. So my advice to be, first of all, is we need to be understanding what are they thinking of doing. And so whoever is making those decisions in your organization, we need to be part of them. We need to understand things like, well, what process are they looking at putting a bot over the top of? How long would that process normally take? How many of those processes normally comes through to the contact center? And then they're going to say something to your fantastic work like, oh, it's going to be like 80% containment and it'll never go through. And then you're going to go, okay, I might just model off 40%. It might not be that great. And start to have some scenarios built out about when this channel or this bot or whatever comes on, what's my best case, mid case, and worst case scenario. What I'm really saying is we need to talk to these people. And often we just get left out because they think we're break changers and shift swappers. They don't realize that we can create strategic plans that align to their technology vision. So you need to get into those conversations would be the first thing. And then the rest of it, you should be able to model out from there.
So following on from that, there's
Yeah.
a question here from Mitchell around, because you talked a little bit about changing roles, right? Stop doing the stuff that's
Yeah.
low hanging and actually insert yourselves into that strategic kind of role. So what role will a real-time analyst play as we move towards more of that ultimate automation of the flexibility options for teams?
Yeah, look, and that's a great question, and it hits me at my heart because literally that was my first job. That's how I got into WFM, was watching queues, and I knew nothing about WFM. I just knew if the number was too high, I should go and talk to that person, right? Technically, that job doesn't need to exist anymore. It just doesn't. There is a platform for that. They can still send messages out and say, hey, the AHT is too high and all that stuff. We get that. I think the way people enter workforce management might need to change. Or you might reduce that team, but still use it as a entry point. So even though you have all the alerts and automation over the top, it could just be still a good segue that you let some contact center agents hop off the phone and start monitoring and stuff like that. The short answer is, it's one of those jobs that technically doesn't need to happen, but we could still look at other entry level tasks for WFM. I would encourage, if you are looking at people to move into WFM, I've seen some organizations do WFM open days. I thought that was fantastic. People can come and see how their schedule got created, why the schedule got created that way. But that could be a function that, Mitchell, that just, begins to decline in terms of how many people we need. You might see it reduce.
Nadia, if you think about that, there's obviously an investment that organisations need to make in, if I think about workforce analysts, and you're right, often it's, people that have got such an intimate understanding of the business, but equally how it operates now. So there's got to be this adjacent shift that's about building the so what, now what. So those
Absolutely.
analysts see so much, right? So how do you actually build the capability and build the appetite within the organization and within the workforce management function itself to actually take that on board and translate that into the conversations that are strategic that need to be had? So I think that there's almost this need in this interim, or in this push towards, really sort of, revolutionizing WFM, to think differently about the capability that the people in there now actually have. How do we harness it better? How do we utilize it better? How do we position it so it is actually about taking out those strategic nuggets and, providing that platform of opportunity for people who have built up these incredible skills? And actually, it's about organizations recognizing how we can use it differently. If I think about that, are there some, opportunities? Is there, a way that, or things that you're seeing in the environment where organizations are doing well as far as building that next stage of capability ready for this new world? Because I see far too many rolling out new systems, but
Yeah.
actually picking up the world we do now and dropping it
Yeah.
into this new cool system. And that's why none of that stuff gets turned on, right? Because it's
Yeah.
how we've always done it. So where are you seeing in organizations investing well in understanding what that future capability needs to look for and look like within WFM or WFO, whatever we call it, and how are they getting there? Because I think that's the other side of this. It's adjacent as a need. You need people to say, actually, what capability do we have now? What could change? And how am I investing in my people to bring them along and utilize that deep expertise that they have?
Yeah, look, I think it's a really great question, and but I probably lots of different ways to answer it. But I really would encourage workforce management folks to hustle in a way, right? To be
Yeah,
on conversations that maybe we don't think we would need to necessarily be on. And I mentioned like performance management people, other, CIOs, digital transformation people. I think we get a little bit too sheltered in our own space. I'm producing a forecast, I'm producing a schedule that serves this purpose of matching up the employee staff to the demand, which is very fundamental to what we do. But then we get left out of a lot of those strategic
yeah,
decisions. So sometimes it's even sort of like lifting your eyes up from what we do, and getting out there and putting your brand of WFM out there to the organization. Hi, customer service manager, or hi, CIO, or hi, whoever. This is what we do, is what we're capable of. Even I find WFM people still don't even speak to HR or to marketing often a
mhm,
lot, and that's been always fundamental to what we should know and what we should do. So I think bigger. The other thing I will say, I'm conscious that we're running out of time. It is really hard to invoke change in some of these big organizations if you don't have a champion who's also backing you and backing your cause. So I think if you are looking to get more involved, finding out who that person would be for you, who can say, hey, no, you shouldn't be having this call because Mitchell from WFM is not here. So who's that person going to be? Trying to make change in enterprise scale organizations on your own is very, very difficult, and you'll quickly feel frustrated. So try and sink in, get a champion, and look at ways that you can really deliver strategic value that people want to involve you without the, I can't make this decision unless I check it, with Luke or with Mitchell or whoever, and get yourself in that trusted advisor position. Yes, that's how I would answer the question. Get a champion, a
okay,
backer.
thanks.
Yeah,
I think there's probably also a step that they could take as a team within WFM or WFO. Actually, have one of your team meetings. It's all about spitballing some of those things that you could influence that you're not yet. So how do
yeah.
you collectively actually build some agency and voice, and come up with a plan of attack with those things? Again, that could actually build your champion as well. Nadia, we have a number of questions here that we have not got through.
Yay.
There.
I can answer
What
them
we
in,
will do.
yeah, I can answer them in writing over the,
Yeah,
yeah,
I think that's
yeah.
what we'll do. We'll, to everybody that's sent them through. Again, we always get great interaction and participation. And Nadia, it's because you have so much expertise that we can just tap into. So I love it. So guys, I promise you, we'll include these questions. Some of them were comments. We'll include them in what we send out to everybody. We'll get Nadia to put some words and thinking and thoughts around them.
Yeah.
And again, Nadia's told you all, reach out, link in with her on LinkedIn,
LinkedIn. Yeah.
because again, I always say it, there's such generosity in this industry, and Nadia is one of those amazing people that takes time to pretty much help anyone. Nadia, I think we can
I'll give it a
safely say.
go.
So
I'll give it a
give you a
go.
plug. We'll be putting this in there. And
Yeah, yeah.
again, say thank you as always. Great session. But thanks
Thanks,
everyone for
Fran.
coming along. And Nadia, it'll be on you once you see the rest of the questions to come up
Oh,
with
good. Oh, good. Yeah, I can see them
who that
there. All right.
winner was. Yeah.
Thanks,
Awesome.
Fran.
Thanks everybody. Have a great day. We'll talk
Have a great
soon.
rest of your day. Thank you.